Hello everyone, welcome back to Azure Infrastructure and DevOps series. In today's video, we'll tackle a topic that often confuses new Azure DevOps users. This topic is to differentiate the Azure artifacts, build artifacts, and pipeline artifacts. So by the end of this video, you will know what each artifact type is, when and why to use them, and then maybe the major difference between each of the three. So first is Azure Artifact. So Azure Artifact is just basically a package management system built into Azure DevOps. So it allows team to manage and share packages like Nugget, NPM, Maven, depending on the project you are working on. And the key feature for this Azure Artifact is that it can act as a private repository for packages or libraries, and then it supports versioning and dependency management of your application. So you can integrate this to your Azure CI/CD pipeline, and then you can reuse the libraries across your projects. So to publish this kind of artifacts, what you do is on your DevOps organization. This is from DevOps organization. You select your project, and then go to artifacts. So on this interface, as you can see, we have a series of artifacts already in here. So, but if you are creating a fresh artifact, the first thing you do is to create a field, then give it a name. Here on this, I'll say demo artifact. So on this demo artifact, then we have visibility scope. So you can scope it to organization. That is any member of this agromat organization will be able to access and make use of this. Then you can assign it to specific individuals within your DevOps organization. Then you have upstream sources. These are universally available public packages that you can reference if you don't have your own built-in or maybe locally developed packages that you want to reference. Then the final scope here is either are you running that on project scope or organizational scope. If you leave it on project scope, pipelines within this project will be able to inherit or reference it. But if you leave it on organization scope, then different projects and pipelines within the organization then we'll be able to inherit or make use of this package manager. So for the purpose of this video, I'll scope it to this project alone, and then I will create. Good. So once created, you have different scenarios. So you can connect this to feed that is referencing your local repository where the artifact or the library you are building is that you want to publish to this package manager. Or you can select universally available packages, package type. Like here we have NPM, Python, Nugget, Maven for Java and the rest, universal packages and the rest. Then you can select a name that is available. So on this, you can do a drop, you can do a test. From what you can see here, package name must be an exact match and may be case sensitive. So an exact match of what is available. So, but what you do is once you select the name, you search and see different versions that are in here. So, but for the purpose of this video, then I will show you how you can connect this to the libraries you are building locally on your environment. So you click on connect field, and then you see different packages depending on the kind of project. You have a .NET, you have Nugget executable, you have Visual Studio, and then you have npm, then you have Maven, and Python and the rest. We also have universal packages and the rest. So I will give you an overview of each. So on .NET, for instance, if you are working on .NET application and you want to publish the artifacts to Azure DevOps environment. So once you select each, it will show you this interface, which is similar to creating a self-hosted agent a pipeline hosted agent as we did on our previous video. So it will give you a code block that you implement on your local environment to reference or publish those libraries to Azure DevOps environment. In some scenarios, you will need to authenticate from those your local environment to Azure DevOps. For instance, if you're using Visual Studio, then you need to sign in from the Visual Studio to Azure DevOps environment so that there will be visibility between your local development environment and Azure DevOps. So on this project, .NET project, you see the code block that you have to add to your nugget.config of your .NET project. This is that, and then after which you run .NET Restore interactively and publish the artifacts. And once published, if you click on this artifacts on Azure DevOps, you'll be able to see the package that you have published. So same goes to nugget.executable. You have your nugget.config, then you have to implement this code block within your nugget.config, run the restore executable and publish it. And then once you navigate to Azure DevOps environment, you see that published libraries or artifacts. Then, if you are using a Visual Studio, the first thing to do is to authenticate from your Visual Studio to Azure or Azure DevOps environment. And then, once you authenticate successfully, the name of the artifact that you've created here, you will be able to reflect. Once from your Visual Studio, you choose option, Nugget Package Manager, and then package sources. You'll be able to see the name of the package that you've created in your DevOps environment and reflect on your Visual Studio local environment. And then once that is done, then you copy this. You copy this reference to the environment and add to your source, and then run the package unit to install the package unit for your Visual Studio. And then once that is done, it will be published. Your nugget will be published. Any changes you are making in your local environment will still be published within this library, and you can version them. Then if you're using npm, let's say you're building a React or Node.js application, so the interface differs. So are you running that on your local machine, Windows or any other type of machine? So depending on the kind of machine you're working on, then you have the interface. So you run this on your local environment. For instance, this is my development environment, Visual Studio Code. So you copy this reference, and then from this reference, you notice that it's pointing to your Azure DevOps organization. This is the organization, this is the project. So you run this within your local environment and then install npm and publish. Once this is done, then you have your nugget published to your artifacts here, and then any person at all within your DevOps organization or pipeline that wants to make reference to that can actually make reference to that nugget. So the use case of this is if you are developing a shared library used by multiple projects, instead of sharing the library manually, so what you can just do is to publish those library from your local environment to Azure Artifacts, which is a centralized package management system, so that any user or maybe pipeline or project within that organization will be able to make use of that. Then that takes us to the second artifacts group, which is build artifacts. So build artifacts are output of files or deliverables generated within the build stage of your pipeline. So for instance, if you have pipelines, either multi-stage or a single stage pipeline, then within that stage you publish your artifacts either to a specified directory or a default working directory. So these particular artifacts are tied to specific pipeline and they are stored in build pipeline for further stages. Let's say if you have stage one on the pipeline, then after stage one is successful, then the build artifacts will be downloaded, and then stage two will make reference of the downloaded artifacts to use it on the subsequent stages of the pipeline. So this is not stored within the artifacts libraries, which is Azure Artifacts. So this is built as artifact stored locally on the build. So for instance, on this pipeline here, you can actually access, yes, access the build artifact here. As you can see, you see one published, good, which is a TF, Terraform plan, output.tf plan. So this is an artifact published as a stage from a pipeline. So if we are going to review this pipeline now, let's edit this pipeline. You'll be able to see the code block that implement the build and the outputting, good. So here now you see publish artifacts. So and it's publishing this to default working directory, and the name of the artifact is output.tf plan. So you can access this in two ways. You can access it by navigating to your self-hosted agent. If you are using a self-hosted agent, go to your default working directory and check for output.this, or you can access this from the build itself, from the interface where you are. Yes, you can download this directly from here, and then edit or make use of it anyhow you want it. So this one, so you can see you can download the artifact, you can copy the artifact URLs to make reference of that again on subsequent pipelines. So this is a build pipeline. So if we did this again, because this pipeline is a multi-stage, on the second stage, which is commented out here, you see, okay, the stage 2 is to deploy this. So it downloads this, the TF plan, and then makes use of that TF plan downloaded. So the artifact name, as it is outputting it to output.tf plan, then the name of the artifact is TF plan, which is this. Then on the second stage, you make reference to this TF plan, the name of the artifact. You download it and then make use of it to deploy your infrastructure or to deploy your application. So this is the reference to it again. So you download the artifact. So this is a build artifact. So as a result of a particular stage of your pipeline, right? So why that why this is a bit different from Azure artifacts, because Azure artifacts is stored in a central repository. This is specific to build pipelines. And then the use case for this is when you're building something like a .NET application or Terraform, like as you can see on my screen. So for .NET application, the compiled DRM files or all the executables are stored within the build artifacts. And then for Terraform, as you can see in this scenario, then the output of your Terraform plan are being compiled together and then sent to output.tf plan, and then saved it with artifact name TF plan or any of your desired name, so that during the deployment stage of this infrastructure now, you pick this plan output and then deploy to your target environment, which in this scenario is Azure environment, Azure subscription, right? Then that takes us to the third pipeline type, which is pipeline artifacts. So these pipeline artifacts are just optimized for sharing files between pipeline stages or jobs. So this is just optimized version of build artifacts. So, but it ends within different stages or jobs. So you can reference it within stage 1, stage 2, within a multi-stage pipeline, as we have seen here, or different jobs, but not to maybe be downloaded to be made reference to on a different pipeline. So this is specific to this pipeline and the stages here, and after that the life cycle ends. That is the major difference between this pipeline artifacts and the build pipeline artifacts. So it's a kind of optimized version of the build artifacts. So just for sharing between stages and jobs. And the use case for this is when you are running multi-stage pipeline, you can pass build outputs from just like as I explained here, from build output to another stage for deployment, within the same pipeline. So just like here again on this pipeline, classic, yeah, I think, this classic pipeline. Okay, good. So from here you see, yes, this is an artifact and already consumed artifacts within this same pipeline. So if you want to analyze the details how this is done on a classic pipeline environment, you see that here, you see build and publish artifacts. Publish this artifact. So after the npm build, then it will publish the artifacts to this default working directory. Depending on your specification, you can redirect it to a different scenario, different directory, or reference it, just provided is within the same pipeline. That is pipeline artifacts. So the major difference between Azure artifacts, pipeline artifacts, or build artifact is the Azure artifacts manage and share packages across different projects within the same DevOps organization, or among different pipelines within the same project. It can. Then why build artifacts store build output for reuse in the pipeline, either within the CI of multi-stage, or it will output of a build share can be referenced on a release pipeline. So unlike that of pipeline artifacts, which shares file between stages and jobs. So you cannot refer on the pipeline artifacts, you can't reference it within the CI and the CD, within the build and the release. It's just within a multi-stage you are going to consume those artifacts. But for the build, you can get the output of this here, reference it within the same multi-stage, or call it within a release pipeline. So to understand the difference and the usage now, so this will improve your pipeline implementation of artifacts, instead of maybe being a bit confused on this is a build pipeline artifact, this is a Azure artifacts, how to implement them, how to make reference to any one of them. So I think this has given a general overview or a bit explanation of how to differentiate the three kinds of artifacts in Azure DevOps. So if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And if you have questions or need further clarification, let me know in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next video.